The rain had started as a whisper, the kind that barely touched the dust before darkening it. But by the time Ethan Cole noticed the figure by his far fence, it had turned into a steady, soaking downpour that blurred the world into streaks of gray. From the wide window of his ranch house, too big for one man, too quiet for someone who once dreamed of filling it with laughter, he watched the storm roll across his land like a living thing. Ethan was a rich man by every measure the world cared about. Thousands of acres, prize cattle, a house that real estate agents called a legacy property, but wealth didn't warm the evenings or quiet the ache that settled into his chest after sunset. He lived alone now, not because he preferred it, but because life had a way of hollowing a man out when he least expected it. That afternoon, he'd been nursing a cup of untouched coffee, staring out at the fence line where the storm bent the grass flat, when he saw movement, small, determined and utterly out of place. Someone was out there, in the rain, at his fence. At first, he assumed it was one of his hired hands, though none was scheduled to be working that far out in weather like this. Then he narrowed his eyes and leaned closer to the glass. The figure was slight, too slight, and dressed in a faded jacket that clung to a narrow frame, soaked through by rain. Whoever it was stood knee-deep in mud, bracing one shoulder against a leaning fence post while hammering rusted wire back into place. Ethan felt irritation rise before curiosity. That fence had been damaged in the last storm, and he'd already planned to have it repaired. No one had permission to be on his land, especially not during a downpour. He grabbed his coat, hesitated only a second, then stepped outside, the rain immediately plastering his hair to his forehead as he made his way toward the fence. The closer he got, the more something about the scene unsettled him. The person didn't move like a ranch hand. There was no hurry to get out of the rain, no grumbling or shouting, just quiet, stubborn focus. When he was close enough to speak, he stopped short. It was a woman, young but not in the careless way youth often showed itself. Her hair, dark and heavy with rain, was tied back loosely, strands escaping and sticking to her face. Her hands were red and trembling as she lifted the hammer again, driving the staple into weathered wood with more determination than strength. She didn't notice him at first, didn't hear his boots over the rain. When she finally did look up, her eyes widened, not in guilt, but in something closer to fear mixed with readiness, like someone used to being chased away. "You can't be here," Ethan said, his voice firm but not unkind. "This is private property." She swallowed, rain dripping from her chin, and nodded quickly. "I know, I'm sorry. I'll leave. Her eyes flicked to the broken wire, then back to him. "I didn't want the cattle getting out. I saw it earlier." Ethan stared at her, thrown off by the explanation. People didn't usually trespass to do unpaid labor in a storm. "You should have told someone," he said. "You could get hurt out here." She shrugged, a small, weary motion. "I've been hurt worse." That stopped him. Not the words themselves, but the way she said them, flat, honest, without drama. He glanced at her hands again, noticing the blisters, the dirt under her nails, the faint tremor she tried to hide. "Where did you come from?" he asked. She hesitated. "The road." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." She lifted the hammer once more, then froze as Ethan raised a hand. "You don't need to finish that," he said. "I'll handle it." She nodded again, setting the hammer down carefully, like it was something precious. As she straightened, he noticed how thin she was, how the jacket hung on her frame like it belonged to someone else. Rainwater pooled at her boots, which were worn nearly smooth at the soles. "You should get out of the rain," he added. "There's a shed near the barn. At least wait until it eases." "I don't want trouble," she said quickly. "I'm not offering trouble." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because after a moment she nodded. They walked in silence toward the barn, rain drumming on the tin roof as they stepped inside the open shed. The space smelled of hay and old wood. She stood awkwardly near the door, dripping onto the dirt floor, while Ethan shrugged out of his coat and draped it over a beam. "You're freezing," he said, noticing how she hugged her arms to her body. "I'm fine." You're not. Another pause. Then quietly, I've been worse. That phrase again. Ethan studied her more closely now. There were no visible injuries, no signs of intoxication or malice. Just exhaustion, bone deep and familiar. What's your name? He asked. Mara. I'm Ethan. This is my wrench. I figured, she said softly, eyes lowering. You don't look like a thief, he said, surprising himself by how quickly the words came. So tell me why you were fixing my fence. She inhaled slowly, like the answer weighed more than the hammer had. Because if your cattle get out, they get hit on the highway, or blamed on someone who doesn't deserve it. And because I've been sleeping near the creek, and I didn't want trouble from anyone riding out here. That landed harder than he expected. Sleeping near the creek, he repeated. She nodded. Just temporary. Ethan felt a twist in his chest. He'd passed that creek countless times on horseback, never imagining someone might be living there. How long is temporary? Her silence was answer enough. The rain outside intensified, the sound filling the space between them. Ethan thought of the empty rooms in his house, the guest bedroom that hadn't been used in years, the kitchen table where one place setting always felt like an accusation. He thought of the way loneliness had crept up on him, not loudly, but steadily, until it felt permanent. And then he looked at Mara, soaked, shaking, and still trying to convince herself. She didn't need anything, and something shifted. You can dry off inside, he said finally. Have a hot meal? She stiffened. I can't pay. I didn't ask for payment. I don't want charity. It's not charity, he said, though he wasn't sure what it was yet. It's rain and common sense. She studied him for a long moment, searching for something, danger, pity, expectation. Whatever she found, it made her nod. Just for a bit, she said. Then I'll go. Ethan didn't argue. He only opened the barn door and gestured toward the house, unaware that the decision he'd just made would unravel truths he wasn't prepared for and change both of their lives in ways neither of them could see yet. And as they walked through the rain together, unaware eyes watching from warm screens somewhere far away, this was the moment where a story truly began. If stories like this move you, if you believe small acts can change lives, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will stay with you long after the rain stops. The full emotional reveal, her past, why she was truly homeless, the rancher's transformation, and a powerful ending designed for maximum viewer retention and subscriptions.